Okay. All right, cool.
Thank you for joining today's webinar. We'll be starting shortly. So, good morning, everyone. I appreciate everyone taking the time today to join us. I'm Eduardo Niebles, Senior Director for CEI's Enterprise Application Business Unit. Just a quick housekeeping comment. Please add any questions you might have in the chat panel, and we'll make sure to cover those in the Q&A portion of the webinar. I am joined today by two seasoned professionals who bring a wealth of experience to our discussion. First, I'd like to introduce Richard Eiler, who leads our ERP and private equity practice. Rich has 25 years of experience working closely with private equity firms and their portfolio companies, and he has a deep understanding of how to streamline operations, enhance data management, and excuse me, drive cost efficiencies through technology. Also with us is Al Vasic, our Senior Managed Services Executive. Al has an extensive background as well, spanning over 25 years across various industries, where he's been really instrumental in delivering comprehensive IT management and support services for portfolio companies. Now, over the next 30 minutes, we're going to discuss three key challenges that we frequently encounter when we're working with private equity firms and their portfolio companies. Both Rich and Al will provide their insights on how you may want to address these issues. So let's quickly dive in. Now, when you think about things, the last 2 years have been quite interesting for the private equity industry. Just in 2023, there was consideration to implement private fund advisory reforms that, in essence, would have taken into effect this year and in 2025. Though they never did happen, there still was increased scrutiny around ESG efforts, fees, expense allocations, and investor disclosures. You add high interest rates, persistent inflation, and rising operational costs as other ongoing challenges. Yet, despite the variety of these issues, at CI, from an operational perspective, we've seen three come up consistently when we are working with PEs and their portcos. So it shouldn't be a surprise for many to see data fragmentation on top of this list. Private equity deals involves various stakeholders, investors, portfolio companies, and really regulatory bodies, resulting in a lot of data that's being generated from disparate sources. To then try to unify all this data to not only have a complete view of performance and exposure, but to also enhance your data decision making does require sound data management protocols. And as PEs advance their digital transformation initiatives, the concern for cybersecurity and data privacy risks also increases. The adoption of AI tools and other technologies to enhance efficiency and collaboration really does necessitate stronger cybersecurity measures. And we see firms and PE companies and Porco struggle with a lack of time or resources, typically both when they're implementing a comprehensive strategy around cybersecurity, thus leading to gaps in their defenses. And what we see in IT inefficiency is, again, the lack of either time or resources. Again, usually both when running an IT infrastructure at the PE or Portco level. More so on the Portco level, the need to reduce costs and improve operational efficiencies and to free up internal resources so that they can focus more on strategic initiatives are some of these prime drivers. But also the overall increasing complexity of IT environments is further compelling organizations to look for better ways to improve around their IT infrastructure. Now, over the years, we've seen many PE firms invest and scale their data management capabilities, but only a few are truly unlocking the full potential of their data. Now, there's several factors that contribute to why PE firms are not taking advantage of this. such as inconsistent data. Really think about it as collecting, curating, and managing data can be quite challenging when you think about the diversity of sources. You have ERP systems, CRM, Excel, PDFs, but also the nature of the data itself, which is often semi-structured or unstructured. Portfolio companies operate independently, and despite efforts to standardize, each one is unique. And many firms lack the resources or capacity to fully understand the data available within their portcos, really missing out on the value these data sets could offer, both in isolation, but also when you combine it with other data, such as looking for new revenue streams. And while data management and governance capabilities are improving, they still remain decentralized. And traditionally, PEs have assigned data management ownership to each portfolio company, expecting them to deliver the right data to in the correct format. However, we find this approach to be quite manual for the portco and really not scalable for the PE. We see a decentralized approach to data ownership, with each team focusing on the data sets relevant to their sector, geography, or function. The outset is limitations, such as the quality of reporting, often reflects the quality of data. Now, PE firms have numerous stakeholders I mentioned. With that, you have diverse reporting requirements. So that's making effective data management even more critical. Now, Rich, from your perspective and your experience, how can a PE firm and their portcos address the data fragmentation challenge that we see?
Okay, thanks, Eduardo. So as PE firms add to their portfolio platform, many of the add-on acquisitions may have different ERP and or financial reporting systems. As many of you know, the software solutions can range from Excel spreadsheets to QuickBooks into an ERP application like Sage, NetSuite, or the Microsoft Dynamic options of NAV, Business Central, or F&O. Unless the PE firm has a program office in place to drive that standardization to a common software solution, the effort can obviously be costly in time and money. There are options we can take less time and dollars. And our discussion today, we will address what we have seen and actually implemented to assist PE firms with data fragmentation. Option number one on the left-hand side. CEI's created ERP templates for entities that have multiple locations and have a desire for a common ERP platform. The templates have common business process models and data models that can be implemented in months. The models obviously focus on the technology and business processes. However, we have also focused on the organization side. With the advent of digital adoption platforms like WalkMe, organizational adoption can be institutionalized. Thus, we have focused on the people, process, and technology legs. This could be a valid option if the PE firm plans to keep the platform for another 4 or 5 years. That's option one. Option two, the use of tools like Data Rails. Data Rails is a financial planning and analysis tool. The feeds from the current systems like Excel spreadsheets, any ERP, CRM, or financial system will enable revenue, expense, and workforce planning for the monthly board meeting. The process to implement is straightforward and can be set up in weeks, not months. The output can be included in a PowerPoint deck that enables drill downs from the PowerPoint slides actually used in the board meeting. The effort to use a tool like Data Rails requires a couple of months at a cost normally in the $10,000 to $15,000 range. Option number three, data lakes. There are 3 levels of data lakes that we will address. The basic data lake infrastructure uses automation to regularly extract data from source systems and land it in a secure cloud storage. This raw, or what's normally referred to as bronze storage, exposes the data for further analysis and preserves historic data over time from the source systems. Data can be then processed for further into what's called silver or staging zones, where duplicates are removed, key values are normalized, and other transformations are run to combine data from different systems. These silver data products become the starting point for data analysis and analysts and other self-service data consumers. Finally, with additional rules and logic in place, data lakes can support gold layer products, which are fully curated, endorsed, and ready for general user consumption. For example, an enterprise data warehouse can be hosted on top of a managed data lake without the need for an SQL database. Modern data tools like Databricks and Microsoft Fabric provide the storage and automation tools needed to host and orchestrate any level of data lake. Initial investment in infrastructure can be quite small when starting with simple extraction of raw/bronze data from one or two source systems. The number and complexity of source systems will determine the cost and effort of extracting raw data for silver and gold level products. Cost is driven by computing power used for data processing. And finally, option number 4, reporting with Power BI. Power BI for data integration instead of automating the extraction of complete data sets from your source system is often possible to directly connect reporting tools with Power BI in the ERP system. Depending on the connectivity supported by your ERP, Power BI can then typically connect to the underlying database or via an API. Then you run a query against the source system to extract the desired information. Power BI supports data transformations and integrations via Power Query. So it is possible to connect to multiple systems at once and report data from them in a combined report. However, there are several limitations to analyzing data this way. Data loaded into Power BI isn't preserved anywhere outside the Power BI model, so it isn't a scalable way to build an integrated data sets. Additionally, Power BI developers will need to understand the underlying sources well enough to connect and extract the data they need. Finally, only licensed Power BI users can work with Power BI models and reports, which limits the ability to disseminate the data throughout the organization. On the other hand, especially when looking at a single ERP system, Power BI provides a great supplement to built-in ERP reporting and can be significantly less money to extract and report the data. Back to you, Eduardo.
Thanks, Rich. I think these are some great 4 points, especially there's a lot of untapped benefit by really harnessing your data as an asset. So let's look at the second area in terms of the challenges. The second area we encounter is cybersecurity and risk management. From a perspective, as we know, cybersecurity and risk management is a top priority for senior leadership. Think about the complexity that continues to grow around this area, especially when new regulatory and privacy laws are taking effect across various sectors, such as healthcare, manufacturing, financial services, and energy and utilities. So it's crucial for PE firms to have a clear understanding of the cybersecurity and risk posture of their portfolio company. Now, one of the best practices that we recommend is to consistently score or grade your portfolio companies across several key areas, such as continuous proactive monitoring, ensuring real-time visibility into cybersecurity risks, providing comprehensive reports on vulnerabilities, malware, and security incidents. From a risk management perspective, identify, assess, and mitigate risks consistently throughout the portfolio. Operationally, maintain those key functions like backups, vulnerability management, and identity access management. And constantly and continuously update your training communications as threats evolve and track adherence to industry standards and regulations. Now, we encourage and we work with organizations to adopt what we call an M&A playbook for cybersecurity. Not only does it protect your investments, but it also ensure regulatory compliance and maintain security and integrity of your portfolio companies. Now, there are four key areas that we look when we have this playbook. There's the pre-acquisition phase. That's where you're focusing on cyber risk compliance, historical data, breaches, policies, and procedures. You're also evaluating data protection, network and endpoint security, and also user access controls. In the acquisition phase, it's establishing a dedicated team from both the acquiring firm and the target company to manage cybersecurity integration. Make sure that you're including clauses and representations and warranties to safeguard against cybersecurity risks. Post the acquisition phase, put together a unified security framework for both the acquiring firm and the acquired company. Ensure that you're having regular security monitoring audits, monthly security patches, and frequent updates to the risk register. Lastly, have a long-term strategy by strengthening your cybersecurity governance with regular reporting to senior management and the board. Have automated tools such as GRC, highly recommended, and engage in industry-specific cybersecurity forums and information sharing initiatives so that you're staying ahead of emerging threats and best practices. Now, after the webinar, we'll share a cybersecurity playbook that will help in navigating this critical function. And as we're seeing cybersecurity and data challenges continue to grow for portcos, one of the things that we see that can benefit portcos is the notion of managed services. These services provide a very streamlined approach to operations and risk management that helps ensure long-term growth and stability for your portfolio company. With that, I'd like to hand it off to Al to share a little bit more on what that looks out for and what you should consider. Al.
Thanks, Eduardo. So when you think about challenges that exist within PE firms, I think it's important to first understand some of the primary goals that PE firms have. Obviously, is when you're taking a company of its current value or organization, you're trying to tap into its unrealized value. Also in the past, PE firms had a much shorter exit strategy than exists today. Now it's very common to go beyond 5 years. So when you think about the primary goal is to become, really to untap into that, unrealized value, these barriers really create challenges that, make it difficult to achieve that. So, when you start thinking about, the things that are important, agility is critical. You want to be able to move, much quicker. But when you look at the complexity of your environments that exist, you have your data is scattered across, SaaS-based applications, on-premise-based applications, the cloud. Your systems and support structures are often siloed or dependent upon manual processes. Also, there could be ties to legacy applications that really make it difficult to kind of remove that dependency to move towards new technology. And then when you consider the type of information that you handle, private equity firms handle very sensitive information, such as, financial data, intellectual property. So the risks, for data breaches is critical. You need solutions around protecting, your endpoints, the network, cloud, the identity aspects, as well as human aspects. And also there's the unknown. You sometimes you just don't know what's out there. The key is really you need to stop the chaos and adopt a unified framework. You need to standardize your systems and support structures across your entire portfolio and have a defined strategy around your cybersecurity and data protection. Next slide. So when we think about managed services in general, and you think about how people perceive that, they often consider managed services is its complete outsourcing model and it's expensive. And certainly complete outsourcing is available, but more commonly our customers are looking for us to fill gaps with either, staffing deficiencies, loss of staff, or, new technology implementations where the skill sets don't exist. You could be having needs to have 24/7, 365 operations. As we know, bad things just don't happen, during normal business hours. And some of the costs to achieve, 24/7 is very expensive from a dedicated basis. So when, our managed services is really able to address, all of those models. In addition, many organizations need end user support or help desk services. Again, that could be, normal business hours or 24/7. And then you look at your application stack. You have, ERP systems such as, Microsoft Dynamics or Sage. You have, maybe homegrown applications where managing the code from the developers becomes a challenge. And then, as we kind of touched on, managed security becomes critical. You're not just trying to stop bad people from getting in, and that's a lot of times where companies really direct their efforts. But you really need to protect your greatest asset, your data. To give you an example of, I had a customer that was in the healthcare industry and acquiring healthcare clinics, and this kind of really deals around their disaster recovery and data protection strategy. And what we were able to do is create a unified approach by leveraging the cloud. And often when people think of the cloud, they think it's more expensive. This is the one use case where it's a much more efficient to leverage that. Essentially, we were able to replicate all of the data from these various clinics, and they had disparate systems, but we were able to remove some of the challenges they had, which involved like aging infrastructure, multiple data centers, manual processes in runbooks. We were able to create a unified structure to move the data into the cloud, and then we basically were able to script out predefined roles for either testing or failover. So at any given period of time, a customer could say, "Hey, I would like to test these, 10 workloads or applications." We could easily spin that up for them, and then they can go in there and testing, and then once it was validated, we could tear it all down. Again, you're not paying for unused infrastructure, and you have infinite infrastructure really at your fingertips when you look at the scalability of the cloud. That's just one example of where managed services really helps a lot of these organizations, filling gaps. Thanks, Eduardo.
Great. Thanks, Al and Rich, really for sharing some insights into what I'm sure it's common to many on the webinar today, but perhaps thinking about how best to take those next steps to address some of these challenges. Now, before we jump to the Q&A, I just want to briefly share a little bit about CEI and how we engage with PEs and the portcos. For 30 years, CEI, we probably have served over 1,000 enterprise clients across various industries, really establishing ourselves as a trusted and versatile partner. We are a certified minority-owned business where we're committed to not just diversity and inclusion, but also providing equal opportunities both within our organization and to those that we serve. We have a team of over 1,000 employees across 5 countries, and our sustained growth is a testament of successful client partnerships. Perhaps, Rich, you can share a little bit of our PE experience.
Sure. Okay, on this slide, we have some of the PE firms that we have performed services for. In many instances, we have performed multiple projects with their portfolio companies. As a partner with CEI, we are accountable to both the portfolio company and the PE firm. Our project results significantly outweigh your investment in our services. We appreciate the opportunity to serve these companies. Back to you, Eduardo.
Great, thank you. Now, just as a reminder, for all those that registered today, we will be sending you the cybersecurity playbook by our Chief Information Security Officer that you can consider as you drive M&A deals. Also, if you're interested in having a further conversation about assessing your data estate or your IT infrastructure with the goal of building a plan that will enhance the overall health of your portfolio companies, enhance decision making, reporting, and uncover additional benefits, We offer various data experience assessments that we can share with you on a one-to-one basis. Now, with that, let's see if we have any questions. I do see that we have a couple questions, and we do have some time for that. I think the first one will be directed towards Al. Can you elaborate more on data security and how managed services can help us?
Yeah, so to kind of give an example, if I look at that use case that I mentioned with the healthcare, so when the bad actors get involved, it's not always to the point where they just come in and they try to shut everything down immediately. They try to infiltrate their way through your environment where they're not just taking out your production data, they also try to take out your backup data. So, a lot of times when you think that's your failover mode, it's not. So it's really critical to air gap that data, but also to protect it in an immutable format. So to give an example, we created storage buckets where we would replicate our storage to for these particular healthcare clinics that had a feature file lock turned on. Essentially, that creates an environment where we can write it once, read it many times. So it becomes impossible for that bad actor to corrupt that data. So we always had a good place to go back to from that perspective. And then we also created lifecycle policies around the storage. So kind of what that would mean is, we have like the first 30 days would be frequent access data. So it's stuff that you might want more, quickly. And then you would go to infrequent access, beyond 30 days to say 60 days, and anything beyond 60 days we put into deep archive. So again, we weren't just had an economical approach towards managing that data, prioritizing the data, but we were able to secure it. So that's one example of how we're able to accomplish that.
Great, great. Thank you. Just keeping track of time. I see another question here is if we are not sure the existing software of the acquired company is appropriate, do you perform software selection services? Perhaps maybe Rich, you want to tackle that one?
Sure, yes. We have done software selection services, at least 30 plus of those types of engagements. It can be something that is just maybe the financial services, could be an entire ERP solution, could be in manufacturing, could be in distribution, could be in healthcare. Doesn't really matter. We just finished one for learning management system. So it's the methodology works regardless of what industry and regardless of what solution you may be looking at.
Great. So just being cognizant of time, everybody, I know we do have a couple more questions, but I do want to thank everybody for joining us today. I hope you found the webinar insightful and helpful. Again, as a reminder, it has been recorded and we will be providing the recording to everyone that's registered. With that, I'd like to say my thank yous to Al and to Rich for joining us this morning and sharing their insights. And again, for the audience for participating. Thank you very much.